Issues at hand on Family TV, enriching lives.
Issues at hand with Bruno Edgar, and I am very glad to have you join us here on Church of Uganda Family TV. Thank you so much for being a part of Issues at Hand every Monday to Friday. We are always happy to have you on board when it comes to discussing and tackling different issues that are pertaining to our society. Now, my guest for today is a guest who has been here before, but you know, when you've had a guest come home, it is always good to invite them, especially when the session went so well. If the guest has enjoyed the food and the discussions were nice and you found solutions to problems, why not? So we are happy to have Miss Rebecca Mukite, who is a public relations officer at Uganda Communications Commission. So we are very glad to have you back on Issues at Hand. Thank you for rejoining us.
Thank you very much, Brian.
Yes, it is a very wonderful indeed. And today we are talking about a problem that is affecting many Ugandans in the society today. And I might just add that I've also been a victim of this problem. So it's very close to my heart indeed. And we hope that UCC will give us solutions to this problem. But before we get into the meat of the matter, it is always good for us to know and have information about what different organizations in our society do. Now, when it comes to Uganda Communications Commission, I know that many of us maybe have an idea, and last time when Miss Rebecca was here, we went through it, but it doesn't hurt for us to go through it again. So, Miss Rebecca, I would like you to take us through the mandate of the Uganda Communications Commission so that we can know what UCC does and how that is important to us as citizens.
Thank you very much. Greetings from Uganda Communications Commission, the regulator of communication services in Uganda. As a regulator, I don't know if I should limit myself to the scope of this discussion, but we monitor, UCC monitors, inspects, licenses, supervises, and controls communication services in Uganda. And by that, we mean that we work with the operators and the operators or providers of the services, as well as the consumers, to see how everybody can get what they need. Because we all have different needs. The operators have their business needs, consumers have needs to use communication services, and then the government knows the contribution of communication to a thriving socioeconomic environment. So everybody in that ecosystem needs something, and UCC works the balance to ensure that everybody gets what they need. We also develop and ensure compliance to international and national communication standards. Essentially, standards are like the specifications of how communications work, because of course communication systems have the people who originate the messages, the people who receive them, and what we use in between to get the messages and receive them. Now, standards is what enables those two ends to communicate, to meet and communicate. So we do develop standards, and then we also ensure compliance to both the national standards and the international standards. Someone might wonder why the international standards. I think we are all cognizant of the fact that communication abounds national boundaries. We talk and communicate and link up with people globally. So it's important for our systems to also be interoperable with international systems, so that we're not cut out, that we're not limited to only the local settings here. UCC protects consumers. Consumers, in this case, are the users of communication services. And that also includes me and you. So even as we regulate and ensure that these services come out, we know that using communication services has very good attributes, but it also can have negative attributes. So We seek to protect consumers of communication services, and we want them to thrive, to use them gainfully, to get the maximum benefit while reducing the risk factors to the lowest minimum. We also administer numbers, the numbering resources that you use for the networks to give you services. We allocate spectrum, which is for the wireless services. Spectrum is the engine that drives the wireless services. So we allocate spectrum to make sure that everybody is using their spectrum the right way and the right spectrum for the right service to avoid interference. Those are a few quick functions of the Commission that we can talk about now.
Fantastic. Now we are well informed about what UCC does, but when it comes to this issue of theft on mobile phones, but also theft of the mobile phones themselves, what is UCC doing to tackle this issue, but also what is UCC's mandate when it comes to the increasing theft of phones and on phones, and where does it stop and where does it start? So what is UCC doing to tackle this very serious issue?
Okay, those are very many questions in one, but I think let's start with theft of phones. It's important for us to know that theft of phones happens everywhere, globally, mobile phones, for different reasons really. Some are better than others. Some people just want to use it one time, some people want parts. So there is theft of mobile phones globally, and there have been a number of interventions that have been done at a global level to see how mobile phone theft can be curbed. And if you remember when I was talking about the functions of the Commission, we talked about adoption of international standards and contribution to the development of those standards. Now UCC, as part of some of its memberships, like the one to the International Telecommunications Union, contributes to the development of standards and recommendations that can help in curbing some of those vices. And out of that, you work with the global ecosystem and companies like GSMA which bring together mobile service operators, GSM service operators. That includes also the phone manufacturers, to see how they can map the identities of these devices to the networks. So you find that many governments have undertaken getting a centralized equipment register, and that register notes all the mobile phones that connect to the networks. Now, when that system is centralized and working, put in place, it's able to see and map SIM cards with mobile phones. And that system then can be used with the bigger ecosystem to see how to curb the theft of mobile phones. Why I've said the bigger ecosystem is because it doesn't work like this. You need to have clear identification. You need to have proof of ownership of the mobile phone. You need to know your phone, because as a user, it's important for me to know my phone. What is its brand? What is its model? What is its email? Which is like its specific unique ID. And is that phone genuine or is it illegitimate? Now, all those things sound a bit English, but that's a thing that we need to have in place for this system to work well. So as a regulator, we are still working behind the scenes to develop the capacity of our users of communication services so that people know their mobile phones. Do you know your mobile phone? Do you know its email number? Do you know its brand and model? Do you have the proof of ownership of your mobile phone? When you buy that mobile phone, it's important to keep at least the receipt that shows that this is indeed my mobile phone. it's important for you to know its IMEI, that unique number that identifies your mobile phone. For those who don't know it, you dial *#06#, and then you write it and save it somewhere. So that entire set of information that I've talked about is the information you need should your phone get lost. You report to the police, you get a police letter, and then when you have all that information, you can now go to your mobile service provider and they either block or track or monitor your mobile phone. So yes, that is what UCC is still doing in the background. But we can't do it in isolation. You notice there are so many other things parties involved. That is on the aspect of theft of mobile phones.
Before we continue, you mentioned a very good aspect of, and I would like you to delve more into it, of SIM cards, mapping the SIM cards with the phone. Can you explain that more for those of us who may not be aware of such technicalities?
So, every time you have a mobile phone, your mobile phone has a unique identifier called the IMEI. And then your mobile phone is connected to the network through the SIM card. So those are two entities. You have the mobile phone and then you have the SIM card. So when you put your SIM card into your mobile phone, then the network knows that this SIM card of this number, the owner of this SIM card of this number, is now connecting to my network using this particular SIM, this particular phone. And they move hand in hand, the SIM card and the mobile phone identity. Now, when you change your SIM card from one phone onto another, or if you change the SIM card in your phone, you have to know that the network will have the memory to know that this is the same phone that had this SIM card that has now gone off. I now have another SIM card. So in the event that there is crime or anything that's done using either that phone or any of the SIM cards that have been in that phone, it's very important for people to know that the network remains with the memory of all the SIM cards that have gone through that phone. That's why we encourage people and keep relentlessly requesting our consumers to know the identity of the SIM cards they use in their phones, because should that SIM card not be yours, should it have been used for crime or for anything that is unclear, you become part of the investigation. If that SIM card either calls you or if it has been in your mobile phone and you now have that SIM card. Now that also takes me back to what we're talking about when you buy a stolen phone. Remember, that phone still remembers the SIM cards that have been inside it. So the network keeps mapping SIM cards with phones. I encourage our viewers to be very keen and careful when you're buying a mobile phone. Take extra trouble to be sure that you're not buying a stolen phone, that the SIM card you're using in your phone is your SIM card and you're liable and have full awareness of the credentials against which it is registered.
And that's interesting to know. So on that very same point, when you've reported that the phone has been stolen and the SIM cards are blocked, does it mean that your SIM cards are safe from being used for crime and they cannot, because they replace the SIM cards?
So it's very important that in an instance where your SIM card, your phone has been stolen or you have misplaced a SIM card, you need to report to the police with your credentials, that is your national ID, so that you get a police letter that indicates that that SIM card has been stolen or that phone has been stolen. Now, when you have that police report, then you have to go physically to a call center of your network provider to get that SIM card blocked. It doesn't stop at the police. After you report to the police, kindly proceed to the network provider call center, service center. At the service center, you then have produced the police report, your national ID, to get that SIM card blocked.
But that's for the SIM card.
Yes.
So your SIM card, as long as it's blocked and it's renewed, you're safe.
You're safe.
But how about for the phone that has been stolen now?
Now, for the phone that has been stolen, if you have your proof of ownership of the phone still, you can make that request for the phone to either be blocked or to be tracked. Whichever side of the investigation, the network provider has the ability to block the phone that has been using your SIM card when it is stolen, because they have the identity of that phone. But you need proof of ownership. You need to be able to show that the phone that was stolen is this phone, and this is the receipt I used to buy it. These are my credentials. You need proof of ownership of your phone plus its email, because that's the only way the network provider can know that you're authentic, that you are indeed the right person who has lost a phone.
Oh, wow, wow. That is very good indeed. Now we have seen what we should do in case in case your phone is stolen, and the fact that it's important that you must go with your national ID to both the police and the service center for your network provider, so that your SIM cards and your phones are not used for crime that is brought back to you. And it's a very interesting conversation, and we're going to have more about this. But for now, let's go in for a quick breather, after which we shall continue to talk about crime that is coming from phones, and then how UCC is tackling these issues. Don't go anywhere. This is Church of Uganda Family TV.
Issues at hand on Family TV, enriching lives.
Issues at hand on Church of Uganda Family TV, and we continue to talk about a rampant theft when it comes to mobile phones. Of course, there are two issues. There's the theft of the phones themselves, and then there is the theft that is perpetrated by the use of phones. And our guest for today is a guest who has been here before. That's Miss Rebecca Mukite, who is a public relations officer at Uganda Communications Commission, and she's here to help us find solutions to these issues as UCC. What is UCC doing to ensure that this crime is no longer a problem in our society? Now, before the break, we're talking about ensuring that in case your SIM cards have been stolen, your phone has been stolen, please block and replace your SIM cards, and also report that this phone that you are the owner of, you have to show proof of ownership, report that has been stolen, so that that phone and that SIM card cannot be used for crime, and then that crime is drawn back to you, because you shall definitely be part of the investigation. But when it comes to theft crime, let's say crime that's being used by through phones, whether online or whether things like mobile money, what are the key things that UCC wants to update the public on, especially when it comes to SIM card registration?
Okay, thank you very much. SIM card registration, it's because of the nature of communication services and the fact that they abound boundaries and walls and national, what do they call them, borders. It's important for the country to know which people are using what communication services. I need to emphasize that this is not unique to Uganda. This is happening world over. Every country you travel to now, even when you're at the airport, when you try to buy a SIM card, you will need to show your identity. So it's not unique to Uganda. In Uganda, we are also trying to, should I say, audit and improve the SIM card registration database. Because if you recall, communication services started way back in the 1998 or above, before. And then SIM card registration is something that has started when communication services had long started. So there is an element of catching up. That's why it can't be a perfect process, because one came after the other. They didn't start at the same time. So right now, we're trying to ensure that this process becomes better, becomes more authentic, becomes cleaner, and then people need to know and appreciate that this process is mainly for their good and for their safety, so that you own your identity and footprint on the network. I need to briefly talk to our viewers about SIM card registration requirements for people in Uganda, individuals in Uganda. One, you have to try and go to a service center, not try. Please don't do or buy your SIM card from anywhere else apart from a service center, because in the service center, the person who will serve you will be an employee of the network. So should anything go wrong during that registration process, then you are protected by the fact that you were served by a worker of that network. I implore the public, do not buy your SIM card from an umbrella or from wherever. Go to a service center. Then it has to be you. Do not send someone to buy for you a SIM card. It sounds like it's a quick fix until things go wrong, and then you have no control over this person. Please, don't send your borderman, don't send your friend, don't send your buddy to buy for you a SIM card, because you don't have control over what they can do, and that SIM card will remain in their details. You're encouraged to physically appear at the service center to buy the SIM card. 3, you need a national ID to buy your SIM card. This national ID has your details and it's mapped back to your national ID registration details. 4, you need to take a clear photograph when you're buying a SIM card. When you're buying a SIM card, they normally take your picture. It's important for that picture to be clear and to be you, so that people can't say, is this the one? No, that picture needs to be clear, because then that is your fallback. Those details, the accuracy of those details is your fallback in the event of an investigation or anything, and you need to show proof of who you are. That picture needs to be clear and it has to be there. You have to sign off that SIM card registration form. Please don't register and walk away, because when you register and walk away, someone else will own it. And you don't know the intentions of all the people. So please sign off either on the paper or on the digital pad that you're given. Make sure you sign off. If you can't sign, then you can use your thumbprint. During SIM card registration, there has to be a verification using an API. That verification process, that API helps the network providers verify that the ID that is being presented is actually for that person. So it's a real-time verification with the NERA database that is for Ugandan nationals, and then for refugees, that API verifies your attestation letter or your registration certificate with the UNHCR and Office of the Prime Minister database for refugees. For foreign nationals, you use your passport, and the backup for that passport is that your SIM card should be activated for the duration of the visa. So when your visa expires, then the SIM card should also stop working or should expire. Yeah, those are the quick pointers on SIM card registration. We have reports that there have been instances where people have been sold to pre-registered SIM cards or sold to SIM cards on the streets or under umbrellas. I implore the public to know that that comes with a lot of risks. You get the SIM card, yes, it might work, but you don't know what this SIM card has been used for in the past. And then you're putting it in your mobile phone and it's mapping with your mobile phone. So please, I implore the public to buy SIM cards strictly from service centers. Thank you.
And then is SIM card registration, especially with national IDs, is it one of the ways and is it helping to fight this vice in terms of theft?
Yes.
And how so?
SIM card registration creates an identity behind a number. Because like I've told you, networks are now intelligent. They don't forget. So when someone calls you, when you make a transaction, everything you do with your phone and your SIM card creates a footprint on the network. But it's important for you to know and be sure that the people you're dealing with are authentic. The only way the network can create that identity is through the details, the customer details that are mapped against that number. So when you send mobile money by error, or when a fraudster tries to call you, when someone calls you and threatens you, because we get into different scenarios in life, and maybe sometimes someone threatens you, you need to have the confidence to go and report that number and know that that number will bring up details of the right person who called you. Now, should that number bring out details of another person, that puts another person in trouble. How? That if I call you, or if I called your wife today and I threatened her and I used derogatory language and I maybe fleeced someone mobile money, or I did some unclear or criminal activity, even when that SIM card is not registered in my names, the person against who those details are captured, because remember, when we're registering our national IDs, they capture a lot of detail about us: who you are, where you come from, your family, your spouse, where you stay, your village. So there's already a footprint of your information somewhere, and it's important for you to own that information. And that will take me to the next point of SIM card verification. Because this process started before, like we're mentioning that we were using mobile communication services before SIM card registration officially started. So there are instances of errors, of information that has changed, of people who have died, or numbers which have switched. So we are really encouraging the public to do SIM card verification. What do I mean by SIM card verification? Dial *197# and then follow that process to be sure that nobody out there is using a number that is registered in your names that you're not aware of, because that doesn't excuse you from whatever that number is used to do. Yeah.
Thank you so much. And you heard it right here that SIM card registration is important, and you have to do it yourself and not using someone else, so that in case of anything, your details are backed up strongly and you will not find yourself in problems. And that's why we continue to have this conversation here on Issues at Hand. Now, if you want to be a part of this conversation, please send us a WhatsApp message on our WhatsApp line. That's 0787-447-684, 0787-447-684, and we will read out your comments and we shall address any comments you have concerning this issue of theft when it comes to mobile phones. Now, the question is, how is UCC working with telecom companies? Because it seems like telecom companies are reaping big from these irregularities in terms of, for instance, if you send mobile money to someone by mistake, or you're fleeced of your money, still the telecom company has made its cut and you've lost your money. So how is UCC working with these telecom companies to ensure that theft is no longer an issue?
Okay. Well, there's a lot that's being done, but I'll start with our first and last line of defense, and that is in informing the public. Because at the end of the day, regardless of everything that we do as UCC, or regardless of what the telecom companies do, if our consumers are not fully empowered with the right information and what to do, that action becomes redundant. So we have to start with the public. We have undertaken massive public awareness, and I thank Family TV for this opportunity, for this engagement, because the viewers are our first line of defense, the users of communication services. And then they don't stop there. For you who's watching, you need to pass on this information for other people who don't have this footprint. You need to tell your housekeepers, to tell your children, to tell your old parents, your aunts and uncles, and people in your networks that, one, all the services that are being talked about here are done strictly in service centers. So nobody should call you, as in absolutely nobody should call you and tell you that they're updating or upgrading or what. Anybody who calls you on the phone and tells you or enter these numbers is a fraudster. This process is only done at service centers. And then this process has oversight from UCC, but Uganda Communications Commission does not register SIM cards, does not activate SIM cards, and therefore we don't disconnect or have any action on SIM cards.
Wow.
I repeat, nobody should call you and claim that they're from Uganda Communications Commission, that you have not registered your SIM card, that they're going to disconnect it. No. UCC does not register SIM cards, does not disconnect SIM cards. This is something that is only and can only be done by your network providers. So, and even the network providers do not do it over the phone. They do it through a service center. So nobody should call you and say, I'm from MTN, I'm going to disconnect your phone. That cannot happen over the phone. If there is anything that has to be done, be it registration, be it upgrading, be it a SIM swap, it is done at a service center, not over the phone. Anybody who calls you over the phone is a fraudster. You hang up and you report the number immediately. That is the second thing.
Thank you for telling us that and for being clear on that, so that we do not find ourselves in very compromising situations. We're going to continue to tackle this issue, but for now let's go in for a quick breather, after which we shall continue to tackle this issue and we shall get into your comments.
Issues at hand on Family TV, enriching lives.
Church of Uganda Family TV, enriching lives, and that's why we have programs like Issues at Hand. We enrich our lives together. How? By tackling different issues that are hurting our society. And one of the big issues hurting our society right now, especially in times of inflation and high commodity prices, is the theft on mobile phones. So that's what we have been tackling today with my guest. And talking about my guest, there are comments coming in from our WhatsApp line, and we know that you shall address them adequately. Now, Mukwala Paul from Kagoma says, does UCC follow up on communications, especially those of masqueraders who call us with hefty promises of winnings, especially promotions, and then ask us for our pins?
That is a good question. Thank you very much, Paul. UCC and the operators can only follow up when you report. So this, when someone calls you and you are alert enough to know that this is a fraudster or this is someone who is attempting to be unclear, we encourage you as a starting point to report this number. Call your service center and report. You can call the UCC toll-free line and report those numbers. Yes, we do follow up. We have a number of cases. I think they are now up to like they're up to like 11 which are coming to, as in where people are going to be prosecuted and imprisoned, which cases can only, these investigations can only start when you report. Like we mentioned earlier, the network is intelligent. So when you report that a number has called you, the network provider then verifies to see or collaborate that information. And that is what starts the investigation. This
Actually, on that note, there's another question here from Kareba Timothy, who is from Muyenga. And he asks, why is it that the UCC toll-free line is always busy and it's hard to connect? Is there an alternative service line to reach UCC?
Right now, there is no alternative service line. You have to keep trying because as you see, as you know, it's a toll-free line, meaning it's not charged. And then our consumers, we encourage our consumers to call in. So the line is always busy. We can only implore you to keep trying. You keep trying, you will eventually go through. And if you try our line and it's busy, then we also encourage you to dial 100, which is the service center number for all networks. You get through to the service center of your network provider. So either way, it's very important for you to report those numbers because, as you know, sometimes people can be malicious. So we can't act without, there has to be a report against which the investigation can start. So when you don't report, then investigations don't happen. Then this person keeps on doing this. But when you report that number is profiled, that number is tracked to see which other numbers it's calling, which other numbers it's working with, how long did it call this number, who is a collaborator, who is a victim. So when that number is profiled, that then becomes the information that feeds that investigative process. So yes, Paul, Timothy, please don't give up on reporting. We do follow up. The network providers do follow up. Police does follow up. There is joint collaboration between UCC, the network providers, and Uganda Police to investigate all these cases that are reported.
It's like you know the questions that are being sent in because Sylvia Nancha from Kampala says UCC should form up enforcement teams to patrol wrong elements who are conning people. Otherwise, we shall believe that UCC and police have a hidden agenda.
No. Our agenda is to ensure that Ugandans gainfully use communication services, and that is our primary agenda. But yes, there is a joint task force, and we are working in collaboration with all other entities, including Bank of Uganda, because it's the regulatory body that is in charge of the money in the mobile money systems. So yes, Sylvia, we have a joint task force that is working behind the scenes, but we also are doing a lot on different fronts to inform our consumers, because you are our first line of defense. And you who's watching, when you tell other people who might not have tuned in, or people in your networks, your family, your friends, to know that these are the tricks, this is what UCC said, that nobody should call you, that SIM cards should be strictly bought from service centers. When that word goes around, we create a bigger task force, because you know police and everyone can't protect, but when the community works together, when the community comes together, we create a bigger wall against fraudsters.
Actually, on that conversation of collaboration, there's someone who pointed out to me that maybe it's high time that UCC and police had sort of a joint data server system. I don't know how feasible that is.
Within the provisions of the Data Protection Act, I cannot speak to that. It can be beyond the scope of this conversation, but those are some of the things that can come to light as we continue to work together for the good of the people. But what the public needs to know, that there is collaborative effort from different stakeholders to fight crime. I'll still emphasize that regardless of all that is being done behind the scenes, our first and last line of defense is in informing our consumers. When consumers are informed, they are our biggest weapons
And
against fraudsters.
And we are well protected.
And we're doing this to keep informing them.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And then Immaculate Luanga from Chambogo says, it's been over a month now. Every time I load airtime, there's an automatic deduction of 250 shillings off my phone, and yet I have no debt or any service that I have subscribed to. Who should I hold accountable? Is it UCC or the telecom company?
Okay. Immaculate, that's really unfortunate, and sometimes we subscribe to services without knowing. However, I will encourage you to first of all report to your service center of your network provider. After you report to your service center, they will give you a complaints number. Should your complaint not be resolved within a certain time or within a certain period that they will inform you about, then I encourage you to report to our consumer affairs desk at Communications House in the middle of town, or you can send us an email on ucc@ucc.co.ug, or you can call our toll-free line and log your complaint. But we encourage you to first lodge your complaint with your network provider. They will give you a number that logs that complaint. And should your complaint not be resolved within a certain timeline, then you can report to UCC and we shall work to ensure that that is resolved at the soonest. Thank you.
Now, Peter Mulamba from Makere asks, as a regulator, does UCC monitor the transactions on mobile money, or do they only consider the easier way out irrespective of what happens behind those telecom doors and centers?
Well, it's important for the public to know that in line with our mandate for mobile money stops at the network. We don't have visibility of the money. Bank of Uganda is the entity that regulates the money on that network. And Bank of Uganda has licensed mobile money companies out of the telecom companies. So the MTN we regulate as UCC is not the same MTN Bank of Uganda regulates for mobile money. No. As UCC, we are only dealing with the infrastructure or the road on which that money is moving, while Bank of Uganda is the one that is regulating the actual money on the system. So all complaints related to mobile money, the actual money, the transactions, we encourage our consumers to report to Bank of Uganda.
Then I know we are talking about how science is a priority in this country when it comes to our government, and I know a very good scientist who was asking about that email number, saying that it can be changed. Is that so? Yes,
the email number can be changed because, like I think the last time we were here, we talked a little bit about smartphones and the fact that some of the components of the smartphones are now actually programmable components. They're not physical. And the beauty of you having an authentic or legitimate smartphone is that that smartphone keeps listening in to the servers of the people who made it for its updates, for its upgrades, for its antiviruses and all those things. So just like any other programmable function, email numbers in certain instances can be reprogrammed or tampered with. And when they are tampered with, that device ceases to be legitimate. So when you buy a device whose email number has been tampered with, it means that when you want to download upgrades, it's going to want to connect to the server of its original manufacturer, but the server won't be able to recognize it. And that's where you now get malfunctions, that's where you now get hackers, because your device has been tampered with. The parent company.
Hackers?
No. There are people amidst us who know, who have the capability or the gadgets who have good skills but use them negatively to tamper with those emails. And it's against that background that we encourage people that when you're buying a device, please, you're encouraged to deal with authorized dealerships, to deal with entities who have physical addresses, to make sure that you get a receipt, to be sure that the device that you're being sold to is really who it is. Because when they tamper with that email number, they can sell to you a device called Rebecca Mukite, but when now the new email number they've given it is Rebecca Nakanwaji. So once there are those altercations, it will still look genuine. It will still be the same, some functions will be the same, but along the way, it will stop, you will stop getting the advantages that me who has an original Techno or Nokia and I am connecting to a Nokia server and I can get upgrades and I can download applications, that device will start malfunctioning. Please be careful and be keen on where you buy your gadgets from.
And thank you for taking us through that. What's your final remark on this issue and what UCC is doing to fight this issue of mobile of theft on mobile phones? What as UCC, but also as Rebecca, do you want us to go away with concerning this very pertinent issue?
Thank you very much for this opportunity to summarize for our viewers. I think my key takeaway from this discussion is that, yes, we have a lot of work to do as UCC and as operators and the entire ecosystem of communication services. However, our first and last line of defense is with an informed consumer. We encourage our consumers to keep learning, keep your ears to the ground. You need to know how to navigate safely the communications environment in order for you to avoid the risks that come from it. So please heed to our calls for SIM card verification. Verify to know what numbers are registered using your NIN. Because just like we're having this conversation, someone out there might be making calls to people using a SIM card that is registered in your names that maybe you didn't block or what. So please dial *197# right now and verify that SIM card that you're using to be sure that all the SIM cards that are registered using your NIN are your SIM cards.
But thank you for joining us on Issues at Hand today. Remember, we are family. This is Church of Uganda Family TV. Please love your family and take care of your family. God richly bless you.
The views expressed on this show are not necessarily those of this television or its management, but as of individuals as we hear them. Family TV, enriching lives.